On this week's episode, it's part 2 of our fall movie preview. Last minute advice for the first full weekend in the NFL. And what's in a review score when it comes to the press these days? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of every single broadcast that we do. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He's the headmaster of his own realm when it comes to pop culture. It is the man in charge of the Topicoculus podcast and everything going on at Humanica Media. You got to check out all the great stuff that's going on today at humanicamedia.com, on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so much more. It is my good friend. He's getting ready to teach some unsuspecting kids that are in for more than what they bargained for. It is my good friend, Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Oh, just living that teacher life, just making syllabi, I guess would be the proper term for that. And just, yeah, man, you know how that goes.
Getting ready to write down those F's, getting practice on those F's, F.
It's all in the wrist.
It's all on the wrist indeed. No need to write any of those A's, that's for sure. You're going to be one of those hardcore, hard teachers that just that these kids will just remember for the rest of their lives, and not in a good way. But it is going to be a great show indeed, as I've got, like I said, the headmaster with me. But we've got a great show, like I said, indeed. We've got Chad with Hyperschmidt. He's got a great new song, and we're going to be playing that upcoming later on in the program. Also as well, Rob McCallum is going to be once again in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. He's got a lot to talk about in pop culture. Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast, which is now exclusive on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel on all of our different podcast networks. He's going to stop by with some last minute thoughts before the first full weekend in the NFL. And also as well, we're going to be talking about review scores, how there's a couple sites that are changing their philosophy on review scores. And we're wondering if that is actually a good thing or not for the people that read their items out there. All this and a lot more. First off, before we go into our movie preview, if you haven't checked out our part 1 of our movie preview, that is on our previous Monday episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. We've also got last week on the previous episode of the PCC Multiverse an outstanding preview for video games for the entire rest of the year. That one's on there as well. But we're going to cover the last 2 months on this episode of the movies that are coming out in November and December. So we'll start off with November, my friend. That first week in November, which actually is going to be November the 2nd, we've got The Nutcracker and the Four Realms from Disney. We've got Nobody's Fool from Paramount and Bohemian Rhapsody, which is going to be a retelling of the outstanding, of the story of Freddie Mercury and Queen, how they got together, how they started, how they blossomed into the band that they did. Your thoughts on any of those movies coming that weekend? Because yes, Bohemian Rhapsody may not garner a whole lot of money or box office initially, but it looks like it may be a great starring vehicle for later on, for down the road, for anything he's going to be doing around the road, and also a lot of Oscar preparation as well that could be in line for Rami Malek of with the Mr. Robot, right?
Right, yeah, he's a Mr. Robot.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, man?
No, I like I've been reading a lot about Bohemian Rhapsody, and I like the idea of it. I like the there's not a lot of like rock and roll biopics out that are in theaters, that are big budget films. Like we don't have like a Rolling Stones movie or a Beatles movie or anything like this. So this is kind of the first of its kind. So I'd love to see it succeed on some level, whether that be through theater revenue or even like on demand revenue. But I'll tell you what, it's weird because I actually am slightly interested in seeing the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, and that might just be because I remember going to see it as a kid, seeing the musical with my grandparents. But I am slightly interested in seeing this movie, especially since it's like it's a Disney movie, but it's not a reproduction of an already existing property. It's something new that they're doing. So I'm kind of curious to see what it is, how it does, how the perception is. What can Disney do with I guess it's not an original, but a slightly non Disney property. So that's kind of a I'm interested, I'm fascinated, but I don't know if it's enough to go watch it in theaters.
And that's something that someone brought up to me this week in regards to them making the comment when it came to the commercial that they saw for the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And that is, what's up with Disney and all these one-off movies that they're doing outside of the normal traditional Pixar movies, the normal traditional chain movies that they do, the series of movies, whether it's Pirates of the Caribbean or whether it's even the, now that you have to consider them in their Star Wars and Marvel movies, they have an interesting mix of movies that they try to get in there. This year, it's been Wrinkle in Time, Christopher Robin, and Nutcracker in the Four Realms. That individual was asking about what was going on with their mindset when they do that, because they don't always profit from those movies. So your thoughts on why they keep going ahead and maybe throwing these darts out on shots and taking chances when it comes to movies like Wrinkle in Time, Christopher Robin, and now Nutcracker in the Four Realms.
I feel like they're hoping something's going to take. And it's weird to me because they kind of did that, with Chronicles of Narnia, but then that series seemed to not be that important to them, and that's why they let it kind of fall to the wayside. But apparently there's a new one coming out soon, or it's in development. But yeah, I don't it's that's a good question. It's a really great question. I think they're trying to strike gold on pieces of classic literature, and they're just throwing as many coals in the fire as they can, because people do talk, and I'm sure they read the message boards, or they know what people are saying about them, and how people know that Disney doesn't really have a lot of original IPs up their sleeves. But just look at it, like they're reproducing Aladdin, live actions versions of Aladdin, Jungle Book, Mulan, so on and so forth. There's not a lot of originality left in the think tank over there, and I think they know that people are starting to realize that, and that's why that's one thing that Netflix does have above everyone else, is that original content. They have all of their ideas are original IPs, or their original concepts in some way. They might be taken off of like a foreign show or something, but they still have some form of originality to them, whereas Disney doesn't really have a lot of that. So I think that they're trying to find that, but they just haven't succeeded in doing it yet.
Then we come up to November the 9th, and that's also a pretty interesting weekend as well, with a movie that really didn't strike as well as they thought the first time it came around. They're going to try and do it again. It is Dr. Seuss, A Story of the Grinch. Do you think this version is going to actually hit with audiences this time around? Because in the past, with the Jim Carrey version, it didn't strike home with audiences as well as it should, or at least as well as the original animated feature, which has been a long story hit for many years. Because this is the version with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right. But okay, so I guess I need to ask you this then. Is it, from what I understand, this is a prequel to that, though, is it not?
It is. It is in many ways. It looks like it, at least from what I can tell from reading the synopsis, and then also as well with the trailer that's out, with, like I said, Benedict Cumberbatch in the lead role of the Grinch this time around. So for me, it still hasn't captured my attention. I was kind of enamored with the Jim Carrey one when it came around beforehand, and then it unfortunately came out. I will say it bombed by it didn't bomb by that much of a stretch, but it certainly didn't reach the heights that I think a lot of people were hoping that it would be, especially for Jim Carrey, who was still hot at that time. So Is it too soon to revisit The Grinch? No, it's been about 20, 25 years since the previous iteration of The Grinch. So maybe it's time to go back into that well one more time, because you know how Hollywood is with original ideas. That to me is just something that it's there, but coming right off the heels of the Nutcracker, that may prove to be a little bit problematic for Universal.
Right. No, I agree. Dr. Seuss is a weird situation for them though, because it people like to have the Grinch was weird. Let's be honest. You know, the Jim Carrey version of the Grinch, it was weird. It was super strange. Same with the Cat in the Hat. Uh, Dr. Seuss is at a disadvantage with anything that is made regarding a Dr. Seuss property is going to be strange. And I think that we're not really in a place with movies right now where people are okay with that kind of thing. Like they don't want to really take a risk on it.
You said strange when it comes to a Benedict Cumberbatch movie.
Ah, Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Hey.
The other movie that's coming out the other movie that's coming out that weekend is not a movie that you're a big fan of, that you were really hot under the collar about, and that is The Girl in the Spider's Web. Have you changed your mind at all about the picture? Because I know you were a big fan of the predecessor, the previous movie, which was a girl with the dragon tattoo.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go see it, and I'm a huge fan of the book, but I'm not expecting anything out of it. I'm not even expecting it to be the book. I'm expecting it to be just something that exists in that universe. And I'm going to hope for the best, but I don't have high hopes for it. Do you have any interest in seeing it?
I have seen a girl with a dragon tattoo, but since it really doesn't have any characters I'm familiar with, as far as I have not read the book, but I did see, like I said, the first movie, but it also does not have Rooney Mara or Daniel Craig involved in this project. So it kind of, I don't know. It really hasn't picked me up yet or enamored me as of yet to the film. So I have to maybe see more before I go ahead and make a decision on whether or not I want to commit $10 to go see it in theaters or wait till it hits home video. That to me, like I said, it's just my point of view, because I don't have a connection to the books, because I haven't read the books as of yet. I've only seen the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I thought it was a really solid movie, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I wanted to see more from that combination of Rooney Mara, and Daniel Craig. I would have loved to see more in that relationship that could develop over the course of 2 or 3 films, but unfortunately that's not the case. We get this instead. And I think a lot of other individuals out there that were in tune with the book and wanted to see more from the book also are going to get that same idea, because of the fact that the original characters in the previous film are not connected with this particular film, or with this particular movie.
Right, and there's also the fact that they did skip 2 other books before they came to this one. So this to me, like to me it feels like a cash grab. Like they saw an opportunity to, we talked about this before. They saw an opportunity to ring in on a a social issue, and which is weird because the other 2 books are totally have Elizabeth Salinger being, badass and all that stuff. But like they wasted good storytelling. I know there are contract issues with Daniel Craig and doing James Bond, all that stuff, but even if they were to recast and do that stuff, they're still missing 2 very important pieces of a bigger story. And that kind of bums me out, because I would have loved to see those 2 movies play out on the big screen and in the English language, basically.
The next week after that is also, well, actually, November has got to be one of the best months of the year. This, from the way it's shaping up, as far as quality lineup from week in and week out, as far as the number of movies that are coming out each and every week. From what I see, November is packed as just really with a lot of great movies. The 16th. Oh, what I think of Overlord? Well, I mean, Overlord, which is also coming out on the 9th. That one, when we talked about briefly with Jason Todd Feinberg from Hunnick. That one,
It's very unassuming. If you watch the trailer, you don't
yeah.
expect it to be what it is.
No, because it starts off as like this army pick. They're World War II battling the Nazis, and then all of a sudden, you see that they're, one of those things that the Nazis were known for was experimenting a lot of stuff. So they take that and run with it. J.J. Abrams is tied to the project, and it turns out it's going to be more like a zombie horror flick. And to me, it's something that is, it's different as far as a different type of zombie film, but is it enough to capture the audience out there? I'm not sure. I think a good way to gauge whether or not this will be successful is if the Predator does well here in September, because I think it has a lot of similarities in the type of suspense monster type deal, type feel to it, that they both have that type of feel. And I think that if that does well, then that could mean a lot of good things for Overlord. But really, in the month of November, as I said, it's really a stacked month. A lot of movies come out, and I can see Overlord getting just trampled, and especially without any really name stars to go along with it. So I think it's just going to be a movie that might get passed over. If it's rated very highly by horror fans and suspense fans and monster fans, it could be something that does very well on the back end when it hits home video. But I think in the theaters, I think it's just going to get trampled especially right in the middle of November.
Yeah, it's interesting. It looks cool. Like I said, it's a very unassuming film, but I don't think that, especially in the holiday season with all these other movies coming out that people want to watch, I don't think it's a movie that people are going to be taking any chances on.
So now we come to the 16th November. So now we come to November 16th, and that's also a very big weekend for movies. I mean, November, you and I are going to be talking pretty much every episode about a major film coming out each and every week. The 16th of November is going to be no less different when it comes to Widows, which is going to be one of the Widows from director Steve McQueen. That could be a really good movie, especially when you're talking about Oscar candidates and things of that nature, because he has really done a great job with his movies over the years. Instant Family, that one looks to be kind of like a different kind of dramedy starring Mark Wahlberg. And I think at that point in time, we're really going to get a gauge of how far down the ladder Mark Wahlberg's career has gotten in such a short period of time. The movie choices that he's made of late have nearly not endeared himself to audiences, at least a large amount. Mile 22 didn't go that extra mile with audiences. And it looks like Instant Family, a story about adopting some kids and that type of chicanery and wildness that happens afterwards. They try to mesh as a family. Will it go over? Will it not? I don't know. Again, it could be one of those films that gets trampled under the weight of all these big films coming out, because that same weekend, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald comes out, and I know your attention and every Harry Potter fan's attention will be squarely fixed on that weekend as Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald come out, and Jude Law really taking the reins as far as his role as Dumbledore.
Yeah, this movie is, I think, going to kind of solidify what's going to happen with the franchise going forward. Is it going to be, because with Fantastic Beasts, there's mixed reactions with that, right? So there's a big camp of people who liked it, big camp of people didn't like it, and another group of people were on the fence about it. But this going forward, I think, is going to decide the success of the franchise, because basically they have this movie as their opportunity to set up the next 3 movies. And if they do it right, then it could keep the Harry Potter universe alive for some time to come. But if they do it wrong, then it's going to be interesting to see what they have up their sleeve in terms of fixing that and keeping people interested in a Harry Potter universe that doesn't feature Harry Potter.
Exactly. I think it's going to be a prime weekend for the Harry Potter series as a whole. Harry Potter fans will support it initially, whether or not it's going to be able to be a success long term. But it does have a great shot at being the biggest movie of the latter half of 2018. It could be the movie that actually makes the most or garners the most, because right now it's pretty much up for grabs with no Star Wars and no Marvel movie right there on the horizon. It could be a film like Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald that could actually come out on top for the winter months of 2018. That next week, when it comes to the 21st, because they're starting a little bit earlier because of the Thanksgiving season, all these movies are coming out Wednesday, the 21st, just before Thanksgiving. You've got the sequel to Creed, Creed 2, Green Book. That one might be something that a lot of people are pointing towards that could get a lot of Oscar consideration. That one stars Viggo Mortensen. You also as well you have Ralph Breaks the Internet. That one's from Disney. That one could be something that's really special as well. We don't know because the first one did okay. Will this one do a lot better? We don't know. There's a lot of questions in regards to that one. There's second act. That one is going to be coming out as a Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo type romantic comedy. Whether this is the right time for that type of movie, I'm not sure. I kind of have my doubts. I think it would fare better if it would have been a spring movie or a summer movie or even a late summer movie. But you know what? They wanted to bring it out when 4 other big movies are coming out that same weekend. And of course, we have another in the long line of Robin Hood movies, another rendition of Robin Hood. Your thoughts on that Wednesday just before Thanksgiving? If any of these movies are going to break out, is it going to be Ralph Who Breaks the Internet, or is it going to be something else? Could be Creed 2, which which is the successor to a very, very well done movie and a very profitable movie for MGM as well.
It was profitable, but was it really hyped up in the in the way that Rocky was? I don't remember.
No, it wasn't hyped up the way that Rocky was, but it was actually performed very well at the box office. But it did more so on a critical standpoint because of the performances that were there that were truly outstanding. And it's one of Sly Stallone's best movies from the dating back all the way to the original Rocky. I mean, that is one of his best performances since that original Rocky performance. So you take that what it is, man. But going around the same time again, will it have that same charm? I'm not sure.
No, it looks good. I saw the trailers. Like, I really like the first one, and I am a fan of the cheesy Rocky films, but it's just one of those things. You know how we always discuss, like, is there as far as like making sequels to a movie, 30, 40 years later, is it going to catch fire like it did the first time? Or, if they were to keep, it's the same thing with like Blade Runner 2049. If they were to make a sequel to Blade Runner 2049, would it do better or worse than the one that came out, last 2 years ago or whatever? So
I think it would do better because of the fact it's done so well on home video. In fact, it's I believe, one of the top 10 best-selling DVDs and Blu-rays of this year.
well, good for it. Yeah, I'm glad. But yeah, no, that's exciting. I'm looking at all the other things that are coming out that day. Like, Wreck-It Ralph 2 obviously is going to do really well because the first one is something that people love, and the fact that it has, all the Disney princesses in, you know, doing their thing, doing something, acting non-princess like a lot of I remember reading about that. A lot of people are making a big deal of that, but um yeah, it's got a lot of big names in it, a lot of big actresses, a lot of cool little callbacks to retro video games, which is pretty cool in itself. But yeah, I look at like Creed 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. I For sure Ralph is gonna do well. Creed 2, I hope does well. But what I'm really excited about is Robin Hood. And you know how I feel about these sword and sandal flicks. Like, I'm
Oh boy,
a
here we
huge
go
fan of the
again.
epics, man. And we won't go into our old disagreement, but
Oh, King Arthur, man. Oh
uh
man.
salt in the wound, man. But no, it looks good. I mean, it doesn't look good. It looks like it could be entertaining. I'm not going into it with any expectations, but because I'm a huge fan of the Russell Crowe one that came out not too long ago. But you know, I'm hoping
But you
that
just said it yourself not too long ago.
right, and that you know that's another thing. Like, did we really need another one right now? But there hasn't been any good like epics out for a while, so I'm hoping that Robin Hood might be something that could slake that thirst for right now.
Well, if Leonardo DiCaprio had actually been starring as Robin Hood, I think it would have gotten more. I think it would have gotten a lot more interest. But since he's only producing it, that might be something that people are just going to pass on by. Like I said, it's on a weekend where there's going to be a lot of other competition. Not to mention from movies that are coming out earlier in the month that will still be doing strong at the box office. So I don't know. We're going to have a fun time in the month of November talking about all these movies, how well they're doing, how well they're not doing. And we're just going to be having a lot of fun, I know, on those shows in November. So I can't wait for that. But also look out again for, like I said earlier, and uh, Green Book. Green Book could be something that could do very well come Oscar time. Could be one of those sleeper hits that it makes 20, 30, 40 million dollars at the box office, but could be something that ends up really doing well because I see performances there that even in the trailers are shining through as something that really could be something special. Now that pretty much runs out the month of November. It starts back up again really for movies in December on the 7th with The Silence. That's going to be a drama thriller that with some not too big names, so I'm not really thinking that's going to be a really impactful movie. But that's the only wide release that's coming on the 7th. It really doesn't get good again until the 14th. And I know this is going to be something that you're interested in, my friend, because on the 14th of December, Mortal Engines and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, two movies I know you have talked about and are very interested in, especially when it comes to Spider-Man, because you're going to be playing the game this weekend. They're both coming to theaters on December the 14th. Mortal Engines is actually something that maybe people aren't aware of yet, but the fact that it has Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings involved makes it very interesting indeed.
Yeah, I think with Mortal Engines, it's going to be cool because this is kind of Peter Jackson. King Kong was not good. Let's just throw that out there. King Kong was not a good movie. But this is kind of Peter Jackson's opportunity to show that he can do things with a franchise that isn't Lord of the Rings. And judging by the trailers, like it looked cool, but is it going to drag on like King Kong did? Does he have the ability to produce something in a different world that is going to be appealing to people? Because the Mortal Engines is a book series, so there's not just going to be one, there's going to be multiple entries. So is he going to be able to capture that magic that makes people want to keep going back to the book series, or is it going to feel long and drawn out and just not too good? Like, this is in his opportunity to show that he is still a relevant filmmaker, and I wish him the best, honestly, because I hope the movie's good.
That same weekend is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And for a comic book fan, this may be something that since you're not getting a Marvel movie per se, and I mean that as far as a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie or even a Sony Spider-Man movie after Venom comes out in October, you really won't have anything by December outside of that film for all the superhero films. So for all the superhero fans out there, should they be really getting into this animated feature, or is this something that maybe they can just rest on by and just concentrate on other movies, or just wait until Captain Marvel, which recently this week showed off pictures of some of the characters in there, including Captain Marvel herself? Should they wait for February for that, or is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse really something that they should get excited over?
I'm on the fence about it because I want it to be good, and I like the idea of like the Spider-Verse itself. I like Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales and Peter Parker, having them all be on the same screen together. But Sony has, if they've shown anything like since, Spider-Man went off into the MCU is that they have done an excellent job of just butchering the Spider-Man universe, just completely tearing it to shreds. And I'm afraid that that's what's going to happen. They're like, "Hey, we don't have the rights to the not the rights, but well, Marvel's using our Spider-Man, let's make an animated Spider-Man." Like this feels like a cash grab. Same thing with Venom, same thing with the Silver Sable movies they're talking about, and they're talking about, Craven the Hunter. Like it just feels like Sony is trying to create something, but they're just not doing it right. They're doing it for money and they're not doing it for the sake of telling a good story. So I'm hoping that this is good, but I'm not going to see it in theaters. I'm going to wait till it comes out on digital Blu-ray or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like is that weird of me to think that?
No, it isn't. But to me, it reminds me a lot of what Warner Brothers has done with the Batman animated films and trying to get them to cross over into a mainstream film audience. Even the best attempts by it, no, they haven't garnered the mass millions that Warner Brother was hoping that they did. But the movies themselves have gone a long way when it comes to a home video marketplace. And I think that's where really these type of films go. As far as the superhero animated films, they really seem to find a home on home video screens on basically smaller. They seem to find a home on smaller screens as opposed to larger ones a lot more.
Yeah, this is true. But again, I think even just using the character of Miles Morales feels like a cash grab to me. I would have much rather seen him introduced in a live action setting rather than a cartoon movie, but I don't I hope that it's good. We'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of trust in Sony when it comes to the Spider-Verse.
That all starts again this weekend with the video game as well. So we'll see what happens with there. It's getting a lot of positive reviews, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the episode. Then we have on the 19th, a movie that again is something that is I don't want to say it's a one-off, but it leads back into our previous conversation when it comes to Disney. And as on the 19th of December, Mary Poppins returns. This is something to me that's going to be very interesting to see how well it translates into a modern audience. You have Emily Blunt playing the lead role, which Juliette Andrews played so graciously, and there's going to be a lot of star power behind it. Is this going to be something that's going to strike well with audiences? We'll wait and see, but this could be something that could be could be a decent hit for them, but also could end up being like some of the other movies that have performed at a similar type of venture as well this year. When you talk about A Wrinkle in Time, Christopher Robin, all making right around that $100 million mark, but not really much more domestically, which is, I don't know, in Disney's eyes, maybe not a hit, but not a total loss that they brought off either. On the 21st of December, that is also going to be a big weekend because it's the weekend before Christmas, and you have to turn your movies in before Christmas to get Oscar consideration. And there's actually a few movies that are coming out on that day. It's probably the last weekend of the year that we really want to talk about and really want to preview when it comes to Alita: Battle Angel, Aquaman, Bumblebee, Holmes and Watson, Welcome to Marwen. Now, a couple of those films will probably not be in the consideration or in the running for Oscars, but they are no less movies that people need to get excited over. I know we've talked at length about the prospects for Aquaman. I think they're pretty strong. Not, many others think that they're not. Many others are more excited about Shazam. Your thoughts on that movie, but also as well, Alita: Battle Angel and Bumblebee. Those are all sci-fi. Those are all action pictures, which are all going to try and hit at the same time and trying to reach the same type of audience. Which of these movies do you think is going to overcome the others and be the standout movie for at least the latter half of 2018?
I hate to say it, or I don't hate to say it, but I think Aquaman's going to be the standout there. Uh, and it looks good, and I trust James Wan as a filmmaker. I trust his vision. I think it kind of has the short end of the stick, though, as far as being in the DC universe, and just because they haven't gotten great reception on the stuff that they've made. But this seems like it's a a more, not, I don't want to say comedic side of the DC universe, but it's just it's a different type of hero than what they've portrayed so far. And granted, we get the sarcastic loner a lot in modern film, but we just haven't seen that in the DC universe. And that might be what we need, and Shazam looks good, but Aquaman is will be what holds the series up for right now. So that looks good. Gonna go see it. I think that's going to be the one that people are going to see. And it surprises me that Disney's actually releasing Mary Poppins on that day. But um, I am excited about Alita Battle Angel. I feel like it's
well, hold on. Mary Poppins is going to be released 2 days before, so they'll have a 2-day head start.
oh, okay. Well, it shows 21st here, but okay, all right. I mean, that's cool. And as far as like Mary Poppins goes, like it's cool to me because while I absolutely hated the first movie because I was forced to watch it so many times as a kid, it's because of that I want to know what happened to Mary Poppins, Okay, where was I? Alita Battle Angel. That is something I am interested in because I feel like it's going to kind of scratch that Blade Runner itch, for a bit. The thing that makes me sad about that is I feel like it's going to get the same treatment as like Ghost in the Shell did. It's a based off a manga. People don't really know what it is. It's unfamiliar to them, and I just feel like it's going to get snubbed, even though it has Robert Rodriguez directing, and it's got what's his name? The Christopher Waltz is his name, right? As the villain, not the villain,
Yes,
the
yeah,
professor.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just an unknown, but it looks really cool, and I love the property that's based on. So I'm hoping that it does well, but it probably won't.
Well, I know people were freaking out over her eyes that are in the the CG eyes that she has, and I know a lot of people now upon its initial release of the first trailer just going up in arms about that. But to me, I think that plays closer to the manga. Is that correct, or is it something that they're just doing out of hand? But I think that she has large eyes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she does, and they're not like. I think it gives character to her. It's not like I don't think it's racist or whatever it is, but it just it gives her character because she's human, but she's not quite human, And it just is of all things to make a big deal out of. That was just not something that would be on the top of my list. And
Two
then
other. Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
sorry, and then Bumblebee. I honestly I have zero interest in watching Bumblebee.
I don't think I do either. I know this is going to be another platform to try and get John Cena over as far as a major star. I know this will probably go big. I know this will probably do well overseas because the Transformer movies have done well overseas in several different markets. In the United States, the Transformer series has kind of waned over the years and is in need of a reboot, maybe in about 4 or 5 years down the road. But doing this again after the last Transformers movies didn't perform so hot is kind of like, not sure this was the wisest decision in the world, but we'll see how it plays out. It, again, is playing against 3 other action. You could almost put them in kind of like sci-fi-ish, action type thriller movies, hero movies per se. So we'll see how that holds as far as those 3 are concerned, because those 3 are pretty much battling for the same type of individuals that might come see their movies. The other 2 movies that are coming out that day are Holmes and Watson, which is going to be a spoof with the Step Brothers duo of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, along with Ray Fiennes. They're going to be at it again. This movie may be a dud or maybe a big hit. I'm not sure. It's going to be one way or the other. Seeing those 2 on screen usually means for a great time and a lot of great laughs. We'll see if that comes to pass when Holmes and Watson hits theaters on December 21st. But the movie I don't want people to forget about is Welcome to Marwen. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, and he's had a long line of movies that from the Back to the Future movies that he was a part of, to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, to Flight, to to the Polar Express, Castaway. I mean, there's a ton of movies that he's done that's gotten a whole lot of acclaim. This movie might be going under the radar now, but I think if it's anywhere near the quality of some of his best pictures, this could be really something special and could be a vehicle for Steve Carell as far as an Oscar nomination is concerned. Speaking of Oscar nominations, I want to actually get one more movie in there. It's going to actually, I believe, debut in LA and New York by Christmas, which I think is the requirements that you need to be Oscar contenders. But On the Basis of Sex is the last movie that will be going wide. It will go wide, actually, I think on the 26th, but it details the beginnings of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her struggle and her fight to get to become a U.S. Supreme Court justice. It's going to tell, I believe, a great, inspiring story. Will it play to the same, to a crowd that's going to appreciate it for what it is? Will it be good enough to drive audiences in there in the month of January going forward and be something that a lot of people will also consider for Oscar contention? We'll have to wait and see, but that movie is getting a lot of people excited as well, especially because of the documentary on Ruth Bader Ginsburg has just been released and it's been on CNN, it's been in theaters, it's done pretty good for a documentary, and so a lot of people are excited about her story being told from a fictional standpoint as well. So that ends our preview of the movies for November and December. If you have any questions on any films that you're going to see, or if you want us to talk about any films especially coming up in September, October, November, or December, give us a shout out, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, coming up right after the break, we've got Rob McCallum in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. We also have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Tyler Baker and the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. Josh and I will be on the back end talking about a lot of great things when it comes to review. Well, we'll be talking about we'll be catching you up on some of the pop culture stuff going on this weekend and our thoughts on review sites. But first, we've got our good friend Chad and Hyperschmidt. This is his new song, Set You Free. And this is the PCC Multiverse. We'll talk more about a lot of great films coming up in November, and we'll talk more about a lot of great films coming up in December right after the break. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. I just want to thank Chad from Hyperschmidt, Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast, and Rob McCallum from Rob McCallum Films as well, stepping into the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire as always. Also want to thank you listeners out there. We've gotten a lot of listens and a lot of plays over the course of the past month or so from a lot of great places, not only US, but Canada, Sweden, Australia, Lebanon, just to name a few. Want to thank all those listeners out there who take the time to check out all of our great programming, because it doesn't go unnoticed nor unappreciated. If you do need a listing of where we're being played at or where we are at on podcasts or radio stations, just check us out today, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, and you'll get our listings right there. My friend, you've got a great thing going on with Humanica Media. So tell me, man, what's going on with Humanica Media?
We kind of got slow on content this week, had some scheduling issues, but you can check out my interview with Callum Reed of the melodic hardcore band Stasis, which is up now. And also this morning, I re-uploaded an episode of the Super BS Cast, but rebranded as Topicocalypse, where I sit down and I interview Jonaman Nordhagen, who we met at E3 a couple of years ago, and we were talking about his game, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine.
That's the name I could not get right when we're at E3, but I know a lot of things this year he has said when it comes to his game. That game right there that you were talking about, it's come up big in the news. It's come up in the video game news wires over the course of 2018, because it did come out and it was met with kind of a different type reaction. So definitely your interview does play out, and you got to check that out. That's again, Topicocalypse on Podbean and so many other great outlets. Also want to welcome one of our newest members of our syndication family, the Juice. That's right, Juice FM in the UK. Want to thank you so much for being a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos scene, and thank you so much for playing our shows. We truly appreciate it and welcome that audience. Just cannot thank you enough for being part of the Juice FM schedule. And last but not least, before we hit our last subject, Sal from Salvador Villa from Mario Party Wars and I had sat down this week and talked about his plans to honor the people that were unfortunately killed and injured in the terrible shooting last month at the Madden playoffs at the Madden video game tournament in Jacksonville. He is going to honor those individuals and also try and drive up funds for those families via his charity events that he's going to be holding here in Las Vegas, calling it Vegas Gamers Unite for Jacksonville. So keep in tune in that. It's going to happen. Most of those events are going to take place in the next couple of weeks. I know I'm planning something up with him, I believe in correlation with our good friends at Retro City Games. So take a look for that on our Facebook page at Pop Culture Cosmos. Also Game Source on Facebook, Humanica Media on Facebook, and Mario Party Wars on Facebook as well. We'll give you all the info and detail. If you're in the Las Vegas area and are willing to be able to take some time to play some good games for a great cause, let us know. And then also, if you're able to contribute, hopefully you'll be able to go ahead and catch some of our streams and also some of the things that we're hoping in ways to contribute to those families as well. So on our way out, my friend, I just wanted to hit you up real quick on your thoughts on Polygon and other sites changing the way they do review scores. Polygon announced this week that they're getting rid of review scores and doing something called Polygon Recommends. Got my thumbs up there. Basically saying if they like it or to a certain point, or if they like it to a certain point, that they'll go ahead. Polygon recommends putting like a stamp of approval or pretty much giving it the stamp of approval. Your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on them going in that direction? I'm personally not a fan of it because I like review scores. I even have issues sometimes with our own review scores. Got to think the star system that we've utilized is sometimes a little too vague. I would love to go back to what we used to do with a 10th, 1 out of 10 scoring value with to the 0.10, but I'll discuss that with you for our plans later on going on later on as far as our internet services are concerned. What are your thoughts on that? Do you like the fact that they're going to this type of format, or Kotaku has done it as well? Or do you like the fact that scores give you a better indication of just how good a game is going to be? Is it something that you need right away, or is it something that's good, or is it something that's really not that good at all?
Here's the thing with critic scores. I like to see how a game did, but usually those scores don't determine if I'm going to play the game. So I'll watch the trailers, and if there's a game that I'm hyped about, I'm going to go out and buy it regardless of what the critics are saying about it. But I do like, after I play it, I do like to go through and see what everyone said about it. I like to read the reviews. I like to listen to the podcast. I like to hear what the directors have to say about the reception and all that stuff. And it's weird because, I was listening to a podcast and talking about this, the fact that Kotaku is actually changing the way that they review games, and the fact that, all these games coming out are being released as, early access games. So how do you review an early access game? So they're reviewing stuff based on if it's out and is it playable, and it's not, even if it's not a complete product, they're still going to be reviewing these things. It's just the nature of reviews in general is changing. And I don't like the Polygon recommends thing, because everyone has different tastes in gaming. So I think that if you're going to say Polygon recommends, that's kind of hubris to assume that everyone else is going to like what you're peddling. But yeah, I like the 1 through 10 system, because it kind of, if you want to get particular and give it like a 9.8 and you have specific reasoning for that, like, you can tell people that that's how you're feeling about it. But as far as like reviews go, I'm curious just how many people put weight on those, you know?
Well, to me, like I said, a lot of people. Well, okay, to me, there it comes down to three people, three different types of readers when they go to these review sites. Some are just looking for the score and moving on. Some of them are actually reading the review in full, and then some of them are just disregarding it altogether and just wants to go ahead and make comments on whatever the reviewer said, good or bad. That to me is the type of readers that they have that are going to these sites, IGN, Kotaku, Polygon, what have you. But I think for me, I see it as when I see a game that's getting like for instance, Spider-Man, which got several great scores, 8.7s, 9s, 9.1s, 9.2s, 8.5s, things of that nature. That tells me it's a very good game, and it's a game you should strongly consider buying right away because it's something that could be really, really good for you as far as experience. That means that to me is a bigger draw than saying Polygon recommends or just wording it out as far as, okay, this is maybe something that you should get into. And we don't want to give you a score because we know you're just going to look at the score and move on. I'm sorry, I'm big into scores. It just helps me evaluate from a period of the time. Because like you and I always say, we don't have all the time in the world to figure out what's good, what's not. I need to know what's good, what's not. I read the article, I see the review score, I understand why it gets a review score, and then I can make a better evaluation from there. I go to other sites if I really are if I'm really interested in the game. I go to other review sites and compare their scores as well, so I can get an overall feel of just how good to the critics that game is to be. That game is to me. Plus the fact that you and I have also reviewed our own games for our sites, yourgamesource.com in the past, and now popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. And going forward in the future, we've also have that kind of critical eye as far as what to look for in games. So it also gives us a good idea as well what type of games we like or what type of games maybe hold off on for now that we need to think about if the scores aren't as high, but also as well the games we should avoid altogether. Because I just don't like one blanket. Okay, Polygon approves or Polygon goes down. This to me it kind of is too vague. It makes an even vague. It makes an even vague review system, which across the board it is in and of itself because there's so many different types of ways that these reviewers review games. It makes it even harder when they just do a blanket yay or nay, seemingly.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not helpful, in the least bit at all. It's kind of like if we talk about movie critics. If a critic said, "Yeah, we recommend this movie," but a lot of the time we don't know if I personally don't like movie critics, so I don't, including myself. So I don't, a lot of the time it's hard to say, but yeah, it's not helpful. A score helps. A score helps because it can be averaged, and the average helps you know what the people thought about it as a whole, and not just like, hey, Polygon recommended this. Oh, we should definitely play it. Then there's no way to do the math and all that, and that's kind of what gets me about this.
Well, with Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes, I get the fact that they want to differentiate themselves because they seem like they're just another review score on just another review pack and just another group of reviewers and reviews. But to me, it's those group of reviews that I usually start formulating opinion on whether or not I should go to this movie or whether or not I should check this movie out on home video or whether I should avoid it altogether or whether I should go ahead and buy this game or read this book or do anything when it comes to pop culture as far as entertainment wise, that's for sure. So to me, it makes a lot of sense keeping review scores, but obviously for them, maybe they're just tired of it or just trying to avoid being looped in as far as their score being looped in with a lot of others just on a Metacritic or aggregate site for review scores like that. So I can see their point of view as well. But for me, I enjoy review scores because it gives me a better idea exactly where I can or should be putting my money into when it comes to pop culture entertainment. What are your thoughts out there on review scores? Are you liking them? Are you digging them? Do you want them to always be a part of your of the way you evaluate pop culture entertainment? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. So Josh, it's been a great episode. Got a lot more to talk about for our Monday show coming up, including the start of our preview for TV season coming up for the rest of this year. Cannot wait to talk that and a lot more. But any last thoughts for the weekend on the way out? It's going to be a good one, my friend, with the Nun, Peppermint, and the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 video game all coming out this weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to close on right now, but I do plan on playing Spider-Man, so I'll have some comments on that probably next week sometime. So, yeah, just stay tuned.
Plus, you also have the NBA games coming out, and like I said, if you get a chance, check out our last week's episode of the PCC Multiverse because it gives you a rundown of this great weekend for video games, and our movie episode from last Monday, which gives you an update on everything coming out in the movies as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening, and here's hoping you have yourself a great day.